Imagine this now. You're in your quiet room. The air is still, the clock is ticking, everything is suspended. Or maybe you're driving through the city's noisy chaos, horns blaring, voices crossing. Yet for a moment, everything stops. Feel it? Behind the noise or the silence, there's an invisible layer, a strange field, almost like a subtle mist around you. Now close your eyes, or keep them open, if you prefer to challenge fear itself, and try to answer mentally, with brutal honesty. Have you ever felt that life, as random as it seems, is almost staged, following a secret script? That every misfortune and joy, every person who crosses your path, was somehow foretold long before your first breath? Have you ever experienced that strange feeling of déjà vu, as if you're reliving scenes already chosen, even if everything feels new and unpredictable? Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. Maybe, at this very second, you're just the protagonist of a plot written by someone, or, who knows, by something, much bigger than yourself. What if I told you that there's evidence, stories, glimpses of rebirths, and memories of ancient souls that point to a disturbing truth? What if I told you that nothing, absolutely nothing, is by chance? Before we go on, I want to propose a challenge to you. If these topics move you, if every sentence makes you doubt chance, if you also feel that chill down your spine that questions life's normality, tap the like button. It's not just for engagement, it's a kind of silent pact between us. Comment below. Have you ever felt that your life is guided by something invisible? Share your story, your strange dreams, and of course subscribe, because only those who dare to face their own soul will survive until the final revelation. Ready to dive in? Buckle up and take a deep breath. Let's go together. Since the dawn of humanity, men and women have challenged the night sky with whispered questions, their voices choked with fear and fascination. Who's in control? Is there any meaning to all this? Or are we just deceptive dreams, trapped in a fragile body, ripped from nothing and thrown into chance? But today I bring an even more disturbing question, one that may have already resonated within you during sleepless nights. What if you, even before being born, had already chosen every turn of your path, not as a victim of a cruel destiny, but as the invisible screenwriter behind every fall, triumph, encounter, and farewell? Imagine a silent force, present in the silences of the dawn and the buzz of the crowds, that observes your steps, knows your most secret impulses, and accompanies every gesture with the calm of one who already knows the outcome. Have you ever felt, even for a second, this present something or someone invisible, but all-knowing? This isn't about religion, doctrine, or cheap superstition. I'm talking about patterns that repeat, coincidences so improbable they defy logic. I'm talking about encounters marked by eyes that seem to recognize your soul, about deep pains that seem to carry a hidden meaning behind the surface of existence. Would all this be mere chance? Or is there an intelligence operating on the peripheries of your consciousness, conducting the plot of your story not as a severe director, but as your own reflection, amplified in space-time? Feel the pulse of these questions. Let the discomfort grow for a moment. Don't run away yet. Because maybe, just maybe, you are not only the protagonist, but also the hidden author of the secret drama that is your life. Do you think it's possible that everything that has happened to you, the good and the bad, the tragedy and the grace, was chosen in another dimension, in a time before time? Have you ever allowed yourself to explore this idea, even if only in the realm of dreams or the wildest imagination? Today, we will explore the frontiers of this mystery, not to give closed answers, but to throw open new possibilities. Because the next step of your journey can begin now, precisely when you choose to question what was a certainty until yesterday. Amidst this ocean of doubts and assumptions, a figure almost mythical emerges, shrouded in shadows and light. Edgar Cayce, known as the Sleeping Prophet. He wasn't a wizard with a cape and staff, nor a priest of traditions. He was an ordinary man with a calm voice, a gaze that penetrated masks, and an inexplicable ability to enter a deep trance and reveal the mysteries of the human soul. Imagine someone who, with eyes closed, crossed the borders of time, probed past lives, and brought to light explanations for illnesses, personality traits, phobias, and encounters that, until then, seemed meaningless. Cayce didn't ask for money. He didn't seek fame. His gift was, in part, a silent burden, and a calling. Under hypnosis, he answered the questions of distressed people, saying phrases that would make any skeptic swallow hard. You chose to be born into this family to learn forgiveness. This illness is the consequence of an ancient debt, but you can transform this pain into light. Cayce became a kind of librarian of the invisible, a bridge between what we can see and what is hidden behind the scenes of existence. His compiled reports exceed thousands of sessions, crossing stories of souls that meet again as parents, children, lovers, enemies, in different lives, under different disguises, all orchestrated by a greater force, which he called the will of the soul. Around the world, famous names and anonymous people sought his advice to clarify the chaos of their journeys. And even decades after his death, Cayce stirs up heated debates about destiny, free will, and reincarnation. His phrases echo in academic halls, in the silent corridors of hospitals, and in the hearts of those who seek to understand why they love, suffer, get sick, and above all, why they exist. Today, by invoking his legacy, I'm not proposing that you accept dogmas. I'm just suggesting that you listen to the unsettling call of that voice echoing from the past. Have you ever thought if your existence, with its dramas and victories, was not just accepted but desired, manually scripted by a deeper part of yourself? Allow yourself to feel the strangeness, the discomfort, and the vertigo, because these feelings may, in fact, be the first omen of a true revelation. It's easy to see meaning in happy days, in encounters full of laughter, in unexpected victories. But what about when life becomes difficult, when everything falls apart, when illness knocks on the door, when loss settles in like a silent storm? What Edgar Cayce proposed, in his almost whispered words, was a revolutionary and deeply disturbing concept. Pain is not a punishment, but a choice made by the soul itself in search of evolution. Pause. Does this irritate you? Challenge you? The natural impulse is to reject it. I would never choose to suffer. I would never want absence, grief, wounds. But look closer. Cayce suggested that on a plane before our birth there is a secret assembly, a kind of council of our own essence, where we select, with almost insane courage, the most difficult battles to fight. Why? Because in every scar there is a potential for transformation. Because only by diving into the shadows can we return to the light a new color, an amplified dimension of our being. Imagine a childhood marked by rejection, an accident that forever changes the trajectory of a life, a rare disease diagnosed too early. Cayce looked at these events and saw, not a punishment, but an invitation to self-knowledge. Every challenge is a hidden lesson. Every loss an opportunity to develop empathy, compassion, resilience. Suffering becomes the raw marble where the soul sculpts its true form. And what if it were all true? He asked, fixing his gaze on the abyss of existential questions. Would you be able to forgive, including yourself, if you knew that every mistake was programmed for a specific learning, that every distance, loneliness, failure hallucinates with meaning when inserted into a larger narrative? It's not easy to accept that pain can have a purpose. But observe, there is no evolution in a comfort zone. Fire only transforms metal at maximum heat. The tree only deepens its roots when it faces the storm. Cayce didn't romanticize suffering, nor did he minimize anguish. He only proposes that we look at everything with a new lens. What message exists behind what we reject? Why do we repel our own scars so much? What hidden power lies in the dark night of our destiny? Here, the script draws a fine line between consolation and provocation. Because, by accepting the hypothesis that we suffer not by chance, but by spiritual audacity, something breaks within us. The victim narrative begins to give way to the protagonist narrative. Have you ever thought about the possibility of having chosen your family, your greatest rivals, the places of pain and joy, like an artist who meticulously selects the colors of his painting? This is where the narrative tension intensifies, because accepting a part of this concept knocks down many of the certainties that have shaped your whole life. Maybe you feel a strange relief, maybe a silent revolt. Both are valid. The only thing Cayce asks is, don't look away. Don't fall into the comfortable apathy of chance. Question, feel, change. At this moment, do the exercise. Think of one of the most painful episodes of your existence. Can you reconfigure it in your mind as part of a larger mission? What learning could you rescue from it, even if small, even if it seems unlikely? Write in the comments or just record mentally, what was your biggest moment of overcoming pain? What changed inside you? And if you can take one more step, share what your life would be like if you saw every adversity as a courageous choice of your soul, eager for its own transcendence. Remember, true power lies in asking questions where everyone has already settled for answers. And here in this video, your search is just beginning. And now, stop for a moment, take a deep breath, empty your mind, let's go deeper. Do you remember that person who left so suddenly, like a cut without warning? That conversation that was never finished, that hug that never came? What if that brutal absence was, in fact, a foreseen point on the map of your existence, not to punish, but to awaken? Have you ever really wondered why certain events happen with such painful synchronicity? Why did you develop that strange phobia? Why does the same challenging situation keep repeating itself in different ways, in cycles, dreams, intuitions, regrets, feelings that don't seem to belong to this life? Faces you meet for the first time but feel you've recognized. Are you paying attention to this? Maybe in every small detail there are whispers from the soul trying to remind you, you planned this. This is part of it. Follow. Yes, you. And here is one of the most disconcerting points of this whole journey. There is a silent part of you that knows, that remembers, that has seen all this before. How many times have you heard your own inner voice silently screaming to do or not do something? Have you ever had the experience of ignoring that feeling, only to realize later that it was exactly what you should have listened to? What if your intuition was nothing more than the soul's timid memory trying to guide you along paths it chose itself? Imagine a child who survives an accident where everyone dies, an adult who gives up a brilliant career to live a simple life in the countryside, a woman who moves to another country because inexplicably she feels called by that land. What drives these decisions that the mind can't explain, but that the heart knows how to recognize right away? Have you ever felt that slight chill in your stomach when you made a risky decision? That inexplicable and silent certainty that contradicted logic but turned out to be absolutely right? Can you remember a specific moment like that? Maybe that crazy leap of faith that changed everything. And what's more, have you ever had the feeling of being in a place for the first time and being moved for no reason? Or dreaming about people you've never seen in life but who on a deep level seemed family? Cayce said these are echoes, echoes of other lives, echoes of new beginnings, of promises made before time, echoes of souls that continue to meet. Can you accept that maybe that devastating pain that broke you inside was in fact the entry key to the deepest reunion with yourself? The soul speaks in whispers, but when no one listens, it screams. And the scream, almost always, comes disguised as pain. Have you listened to that whisper today? Maybe this video is your scream, or your reminder. Maybe, deep down, you already know all this, you just forgot, and now you're starting to remember. But then the inevitable question arises, one that must be hammering in your mind right now. If everything is predetermined, then why try? What's the point of fighting, changing, dreaming, if everything is already written? This is where the true brilliance of Cayce's doctrine is revealed. Because for him, life is not a prison of destiny, but a dance between the script and improvisation, like a theater where the stage is chosen, the characters are prepared. But the protagonist always has a choice: free will, destiny, two philosophical giants that fight within all of us. Imagine, before you were born, your soul chose what the main challenges would be, the necessary encounters, the main tone of this life. But how you will react to all this, that part remains free. Here is the paradox, the great mastery of existence. Cayce proposed that there are milestones that are fixed, like doors on the path. You will find them sooner or later. But the way you decide to enter through them, cross them, or ignore them, there lies your power. You are not a slave to destiny, but you are not wandering aimlessly either. You are like a painter in front of a canvas traced with guidelines. You can ignore them or amplify them, color, trace over them, but the sketch is there. This changes everything. Want a practical example? Imagine a person who was born with a tendency towards loneliness. Perhaps their soul chose to live this to learn the value of connection, the power of empathy. That is the plan. But in the exercise of free will, this same person can reject everyone, shrink, embitter life, or they can open up, seek help, hug strangers, and heal through unexpected affection. What was written was loneliness, but the rest was living art. It was freedom. And you? How many times have you chosen to react with pain when you could choose to learn? Have you ever stopped to think that the way you respond to what happens to you shapes not only what will come, but also who you are? We are all being watched, not by judgmental gods or mystical entities, but by ourselves, by our future versions, by the consciousnesses that will know who we were when this life ends. Cayce said, "The final judgment is the meeting with oneself, with one's own acts and choices, and it is the soul itself that sustains or alleviates that weight." Are you afraid to make decisions? Are you afraid of making mistakes, of straying from the right path? What if I told you that there is no right path, only possible paths, and that all of them, without exception, lead to growth? This is the most beautiful and terrifying mystery, because no one can blame anyone. Not the universe, not God, not parents, traumas, or aversions. The somber and sacred responsibility for every act, word, and thought is ours. But look, responsibility is not a burden, it's glory. You can change. You can rewrite your route 1,000 times. You can marry someone who was once your enemy. You can heal an old fear. You can interrupt generations of family pain. You can even tear up your own story and start over today. And this combination of plan and freedom is what makes the human journey so incredibly valuable. We are like athletes who accept the rules of the competition, but decide moment after moment how they will play. And sometimes we dare to transcend them. So the question remains, what will you choose now that you know this? There is a place, they say, where the soul meets everything it has forgotten, a space between the margins of time and reality. And most of us have been there, but we don't remember. The common name for this? Sleep. Sleep is the portal, the body's sacred pause. The dark theater where the soul detaches from the weight of matter and returns home. Cayce said that every night upon closing our eyes, the soul slips through the cracks of consciousness and crosses dimensions to meet mentors, review decisions, and mend ties. And that place, you know it, you've been there. Remember the extraordinary dreams? The ones where you flew, talked to the dead, cried for wounds that weren't yours, or saw yourself in a city that seemed familiar, but you've never visited? This is not imagination, it's memory. Cayce stated that souls return to a kind of spiritual room during sleep, an intermediate plane where we find answers, guidance, and reunions. Imagine a spirit that, during the night, receives a vibrational report about its life. Today you had a gesture of kindness that no one saw, but it had a strong repercussion. Or, today you passed by someone important without noticing, they will return. Imagine that everything, absolutely everything you feel, think, and decide, reverberates on the other side. Nothing is lost. Cayce even reported testimonies in which people, under hypnosis, described encounters with spiritual guides during sleep, guides who advised, comforted, or even confronted. Can you accept this idea, or at least let it resonate? Have you had dreams that were too vivid to be just random? Many of those who reported experiences with Cayce told of impossible sounds, colors that don't exist here, hugs with deceased loved ones. Cayce would say, they are alive, in another state of existence. And sleep is the bridge where, without the mind's control interfering, we allow this reunion to happen. And more. Cayce firmly believed that it is in sleep that we are instructed about the next day. That before each day there are meetings where we settle important tasks, situations, and encounters. Did you feel a strange impulse to go somewhere? A strong urge to call someone, out of the blue? Maybe the soul received this guidance during the night's rest, and you simply obeyed. Would you pay more attention to your dreams if you knew they are letters sent by yourself from dimensions beyond the flesh with instructions and revelations? Stop now and recall. What was the strangest or most impactful dream you've ever had? The one that woke you up with your heart pounding. The one that seemed more real than reality itself. Share in the comments. Don't be afraid. Others have also dreamed of the same. Others have crossed the same landscapes. Souls travel in groups. Souls don't forget each other. And maybe you are dreaming now. And this life in the end is the true sleep. Let's talk about pain, but not in the conventional way. not with pity nor with shame. Let's face it head on, with our eyes open like someone who finally understands the enigma inscribed in every tear. Pain, that unwanted visitor, that sneaky thief of dreams, that force that rips us from certainties and throws us to the ground. In the world's logic, it's an enemy, but on the soul's map, according to Cayce, it is the deepest teacher that exists. Imagine, a simple man, a farmer. He loses everything. His land, his wife, his children leave one by one. In everyone's eyes, his life is a tragedy in 3 acts. But he refuses to hate. He kneels on the empty land, plants with bare hands. He cries at night, and in the silence he begins to listen, not to voices, but to understandings. One day a desperate neighbor comes to him and is welcomed. Then another. In a short time, the one who was crushed by life becomes a point of refuge. The suffering transfigured him. And then you stop and think, was all that part of a larger plan, an invisible script called transformation? How many stories like this have you seen? Broken people who, instead of getting lost, embraced their pain until it became light. Cayce believed that misfortune was a coded call, that the soul, seeing farther than the ego, chooses imbalances to generate evolution. As if we were all living in an invisible restaurant of destiny, where we choose dishes with intense flavors, dishes that will make us cry, sweat, change, but that, in the end, nourish us where it matters most. Have you ever asked for something that hurt but turned you inside out in a way you were never the same? The unemployment that pushed you onto a path you never would have dared to take. The abandonment that made you find yourself again. The physical pain that brought you closer to a forgotten faith. The illness that made you value life in the small details. Is it really a punishment, or is it a gift wrapped in thorns? There is a kind of wisdom deep, rough, intense, that only wakes up when we bleed. When we lose something, and even so, we remain. When everything tells us to give up, but we go on. When we break and discover that the cracks are windows through which the light enters. Cayce called this salvation through courageous choice. Not a miracle that falls from the sky, but a yes said in the dark. A scream of faith where there was only ashes. And this scream, he said, echoes through the dimensions. It vibrates, it heals. Have you ever screamed like that? Try to remember when pain changed you. When it passed through your chest like a hurricane, but when it passed, something shone in you that didn't exist before. Write this down. Share it. Give form and voice to what transformed you. In the comments, leave this memory alive. What was the greatest pain that turned you into another person? Let others recognize themselves in your journey, because deep down, we are all travelers of the same pain, seeking the same light at the end of the chaos. Now, look inside. Don't disguise it. Don't rationalize it. Just look. Maybe at this very moment in your life you are stuck in a suffocating relationship, in a profession that drains you, in a pain that doesn't stop. Maybe you are collecting absences, old hurts, fears inherited from silent childhoods. And maybe you are looking for all the exits outside, when in fact everything begins within you. Cayce said that every external scenario reflects the soul's internal landscape, that what you attract, love, repel, or repeat is a mirror, and that the transformation of the world begins with an extremely intimate and sacred gesture, forgiveness. Yes, that small word that carries the power to rewrite the past, to free centuries of frozen hatred, to dissolve invisible ties. But let's start with the most difficult. Can you forgive yourself? Maybe you criticize what you did, what you allowed, what you didn't prevent. Maybe there are old failures that haunt you, unfulfilled expectations, guilt that wears your skin like a second soul. But maybe all this was part of the plan, of the learning, of the climb. And now life waits for you to say, I set myself free. Do you think that's too little? Forgiving is the inner warrior's scream. It's the cutting of the ancestral chain. It's the end of the invisible war that has been in you for so many lives, who knows how many. And we're not just talking about forgiving yourself, but about rebuilding bridges with those who hurt us, even discreetly, without words. Maybe you don't need to talk to the one who left, but you can set them free. You can transform resentment into understanding, fury into compassion, loss into acceptance. You can. The soul, when it matures, wants to transcend. But how do I start, you might ask? Start small. Maybe by choosing today to be grateful for something you would normally ignore. Maybe by saying, I'm sorry, in a message you refused to write for years. Maybe by looking at an old photo and genuinely wishing peace to those who hurt you. These are the invisible gestures that change destiny. Because remember, free will. You can repeat or rewrite. You are the inflection point of an entire lineage. You are the living chance that your soul has been waiting for to do things differently. Cayce said, a small interchange reverberates through 1,000 existences. Take that step today, even if no one sees it, even if it hurts, even if your pride screams. Just answer the soul, because it is listening. And now I invite you in one sentence here in the comments, tell yourself, what do you need to forgive today? Just one sentence. A declaration of freedom. Maybe this is your first conscious choice as the true author of your life. We have reached the end, or the beginning. Breathe. A lot has been said, but at the same time, nothing has been said in an absolute way. Everything remains as it should, wrapped in veils, surrounded by questions, open to your own interpretation. You listened, you felt, and maybe in silence something changed in you. A loose stitch was mended, a dormant memory began to pulsate. But now comes the strangest part. The part you might not want to forget. What if the fact that you are watching this video at this exact moment, hearing these words, with your specific pains, your personal learnings, your memories, was already foreseen in your soul's plan? What if this exact question that echoes inside you now is the question you most need to answer? Do you think you got here by chance? Or is this just another door disguised as internet content among many that you programmed for yourself? What we will do now is simple. We will respect the mystery. We will leave the question open, as every good question should be. Maybe the soul at this moment just needs silence and assimilation, to listen to the echo of what was said. But I leave a warning or an invitation. There are even deeper secrets that Cayce revealed. Codes about the entanglements between souls, prophecies about the Earth's destiny, details of the previous lives of great historical figures. All of this exists, waiting to be accessed. But it all doesn't fit here. Not yet. It's not time yet. That's why I tell you, if you felt that something vibrated differently in this video, if at some point your heart raced for no apparent reason, if something inside you whispered, I remember this, then you need to be here when we continue. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell. Because in the next part, we won't just talk about choice and pain. We will talk about the connection between souls, the contracts, reunions, and promises made before birth. And then, maybe, you'll understand why certain people always appear in your life at the same time. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. And perhaps, more importantly than that, you will discover who you promised to be and have not yet become. The journey continues. The soul never stops. And the truth, the truth, it's much closer than you think. See you next time.